Hello, and welcome back to One Piece of Insight. In today's video, we will be looking at some of the most popular cards currently on TCG Player that have fallen in price in recent weeks, and asking whether or not it makes sense to buy the dip, or whether they're still too expensive and I think there's further time to fall. I also wanted to say that we're going to be giving away this card, so stay tuned to the end of the video if you want to find out how to do that. So with that, let's jump right into the content. So first up this week, we have the Luffy promo from the College Basketball US Voyage. For those who don't know, One Piece is working with a set number of college basketball teams to distribute these promos at college basketball games. There's a few things that I want to say about this card. The first is that it certainly has gone down in price. At a peak, it was around $420, and now it can be had for around $250. I still think that this card is too expensive for what it is, for a few reasons. Number one, I think a lot of people are probably thinking about the Dodgers Luffy. This is not the Dodgers Luffy in quality, and I suspect it's also far less rare than the Dodgers Luffy as well. The next thing I want to say is that not all of these cards have been given out, so the supply is still going to grow over coming weeks. If you look at the schedule for when these cards are going to be given out, they're going to be shared across 5 teams at multiple different games. So look how many opportunities up through March 4th there are to actually get one of these cards. So as supply continues to grow in time, I think the price will also continue to fall. And then the last thing I want to say about this card is, for those who haven't heard, around 8,000 of them were stolen from Rutgers University, and the people who took those cards are probably trying to find a way to sell them. That's not a reason not to buy the card, but I am going to ask that you be extra careful in who you buy cards from, because we don't want to create incentives for people to be out there stealing cards if they can sell them easily. So based on that, I'm going to give this 2 stars. Now, moving on, we have Extra Booster EB03, the Heroines Edition box. At its peak, this box was around $600. It was actually selling for even more than that for a short period of time. So the fact that it's now gone down to $468 again, I think is an indication that we're probably not getting back to that $600-700 price tag in the near future. I do think this is a great set. This is obviously by far the most expensive any set has been at release, and we're not even at release yet. And so for that reason, I think we should still be a little bit cautious about this price, but it's getting closer to where I think a person could reasonably consider buying it. For me, I'm not buying a box unless it falls to $350, but I do think that this is getting within the realm that if you believe in this box long term, if you believe the supply is short, there's an argument for buying it. So for that reason, I'm going to go ahead and give it 3 stars. Next up, we have the Luffy Parallel card from Starter Deck 29. This is the alt art of the leader from that starter deck. For those who don't know, this is a card that you can pull in a pack when you buy the starter deck, but it's not guaranteed per box. Last time we looked at this card, it was around $80. It had just come out. I'm not surprised that it's fallen, but I think that at around $40, this is now getting into a realm where it's a pretty decent buy. I don't have a lot of long-term hopes for this card. I don't think it's like a spectacular hold long-term, but I do think it's an interesting card. I do think it's not rare, but it's not incredibly common. And so compared to other things that are going in around the $40 range, I think this is a pretty good entry point if you like this card and if you want it in your collection. And so for that reason, I'm also going to give this 3 stars. Now moving on, we have OP14 booster boxes. Now, these have not fallen that much, but they were around $280 at their peak, and now can be had. Lowest right now on TCG Player is $240, but I actually found one locally for $200. So I think if you're able to find one in the $200 to $240 range, I think we've gotten to the point where this is about the bottom of where this box is going to go. If you compare it to other One Piece booster boxes, Royal Blood, 2 Legends, these boxes are similarly priced at around $220, and yet they are far lower quality than this set is. This is not an S tier set by any means, but I do think it's like an A-, B+ set, and so for that reason belongs higher than the prices that we're seeing from other booster boxes. So I would feel comfortable buying this at this price, and actually have picked up one at this price, and so for that reason I'm going to go ahead and give this 4 stars. Moving on, we have the Mihawk manga. Now when this first came out, it was sitting around $1,700. It is currently down to around $1,300. I think this is a pretty cool manga. I would actually put this in sort of a upper middle tier of mangas that have been produced. I do think there's probably going to end up being a lot of OP14. I think it's certainly possible that there's a reprint of OP14 that could drive prices down further. We've also seen some consolidation in the market for mangas where prices have gone down. So, I wouldn't be shocked if this fell a little bit further. But I think if you do like this card, compared to other similar cards in the market, this is a reasonable value to buy this card at. And so for that reason, I'm going to give this one 3 stars. Okay, next up, we have the Boa Hancock, also from OP14. So this card started out really expensive. It was going for $1,100 on TCG Player as an average, but I saw sales for over $1,200. And now it can be had for around $845. I think this is a far more reasonable price than what people had been paying for it earlier. In my video where I looked at what I thought would be the most iconic cards under $1,000 5 years from now, I considered this one and the OP09 Boa to be pretty comparable, with maybe the OP09 having a little bit of an edge in that it came earlier and from a more prestigious set, but I actually personally like the art better on this one, and so for that reason, to me, they're fairly comparable cards. So if we look at what people are paying for the OP09 Boa, again, it's around $900, $925. So it's possible that this card falls a little bit further. It's possible that people in general prefer the OP09 Boa, but I think at $845, we've gotten into the realm where this is now no longer a crazy purchase. And so for that reason, I'm going to go ahead and give this 3 stars. Now moving on, we have the OP13 Luffy Alt Art Secret Parallel from OP13. When it first came out, it was around $24, all the way up to $165. I even saw some selling for $175, and now it is down to around $118, $120 to buy this card. I still think this card is wildly overpriced. It's not super rare, although it is Oda artwork, which I think is cool, and although it does share the art with the red manga and also has a red background, which sort of eludes the red manga, it isn't the red manga. It isn't a comp for the red manga. And at these prices, I think it is very overpriced. Other cards like this are likely to fall as we move into a correction in the future. So for that reason, I'm going to go ahead and give this 2 stars. I think this is very likely to continue to fall. So if you want this card, I think the smart play is to wait. Okay, moving on, we have the Gear 2 Alt Art from OP11. This one is a little bit trickier for me because I think this card is spectacular. As I said in my video, I think this is one of the most iconic cards that's been produced so far, and I do think it's going to stand the test of time. At its peak, it was around $300 and now can be had for around $265. That's not a huge drop in price, and this is still fairly expensive compared to other event mangas, but I do think that this is a particularly iconic one. So I think if you're looking at this from the perspective of, I'm hoping to get this into my collection, what's a good entry point? I think this is a reasonable entry point for this card. I think it's entirely possible that the card continues to fall a little bit, but I think if you really want it in your collection and you buy it at this price, you're not going to end up regretting it too much in the future. And so for that reason, I'm going to give this one 3 stars. Next up, we have the Ryuma Oda stamped signature card from the Best Selection Volume 3 promo card set. Now, at its peak, this card was around $80. This card, for those who aren't aware, went up quickly because of the Oda stamp. People were comparing it to the Oda signature Luffy from OP05. I don't think in the case of this promo version of this card, that's really a fair comparison. There are so many of these cards out there. For example, there have been 3,418 cards that have sold over the last year. That's about 3 times what you would expect for a card that is like moderately rare. Ryuma is not that popular of a character. This card is cool. I think the art is really, really awesome, and the Oda stamp is really, really cool as well. But I think for even at $46, I expect this card to continue to fall. I would be targeting probably $20 to $25 over the next 6 months to a year for this card. That's just my opinion, but I'm going to continue to rate this 2 stars. And then moving into our last card, we have the Luffy Alt Art Secret from OP05. This card was trading for almost $350 at one point. I made a video where I talked about how I thought this was overpriced at that value. Now that we've come down to around $220, I actually think this is a pretty good value. I do think this is an iconic card. I do think this is a card that's going to stand the test of time. I do think 5 years from now, this is a card people are still going to remember and still going to want. And so At $220, it's possible that it continues to fall. I wouldn't be surprised if it continues to go down a little bit since it's not that rare of a card. But I also think that $220 is a pretty reasonable entry point compared to what people were paying a month ago for this card. It feels a little bit less risky to me than some other things, and so for that reason, I'm going to go ahead and give it 4 stars. So that's what I have for this week. I've been on record of saying that I think a correction is coming. I will be honest, I can't tell whether this is the correction that I thought was coming or whether this is just sort of a natural retracing of prices from all-time highs that are limited to individual cards. Obviously there are still segments of the market that continue to boom, but I do think in general we're starting to see prices pull back. So I would be cautious with buying. I think that if you've been waiting for the top to take profits, I think, again, yesterday was the best time to do it, but today is the best time currently available in anticipation of the fact that prices could continue to fall further. Again, I'm not a doomsayer. I believe in this long term. I don't think prices are going to crater by any means, but I do think there's been a huge run up, and I do think it is important and valuable for markets for prices to fall. It is better long term for these collections if prices fall in the short term and then build back up more slowly over time. And so for that reason, I would continue to be cautious, but I don't know whether this is the correction that I think is coming or whether it is just sort of a minor blip as it continues its bull run through EBO3. And so with that, thank you so much for your time. If you are interested in getting this card, we're running a giveaway to celebrate 300 and hopefully by the time this video is published, 350 subscribers. So please subscribe, like, comment on this video. If you haven't already done so, you can also like and comment on the previous video to gain an additional entry. I will then go through and pick one of those randomly and reach out to get their contact information so that I can send the card. So again, thank you for your time. If this was helpful, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.